You know, you think that something is going to go one direction, it goes someplace else. And at first, I was devastated, but I couldn't be happier and feel better today than I'm like a different person than I was 4 years ago, for sure.
My name is Heather Quisel. I'm here to level up your business and level up your life. This is another episode of Heather Quisel TV. Cannot wait to dive into this topic because one of the things that I really love personally is interacting with other women who have taken the bull by the horns in their life, carved a different path, and found not only freedom, but fun, fulfillment, passion on the other side. And it can be really scary leaving what's traditional, leaving what you went to college to do, doing something different than most people. And so I really honor women that have done that and continue to show me how to do that. So I want to introduce you to Jenn Rice. Jenn and I have met through a mutual company and a mutual love for all things entrepreneurship. And I've been really lucky to learn from her, to be inspired by her, and ultimately to collaborate with her. So Jenn, I would love for you just introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you.
I am super excited to be here. I don't know why I'm a little bit nervous. I do lives myself, and I'm like,
You're in the hot seat.
It's all good. It's all good though. Thanks so much, Heather. Gosh, I would have never seen myself sitting here, that's for sure, but I am so glad to be here. And I want to share a little bit about how Heather and I came to meet. I actually have been a practicing dermatology PA for the last 12 plus years. And when I heard about the opportunity with the company that Heather and I are both with, I was actually at what I would consider like the prime of my career. Like I was making more money than I'd ever made before, multiple six figures in medical practice. I was working my butt off, don't get me wrong, but I really thought I had arrived. But I found myself, it'll be 4 years ago this January, I was driving home and I received a phone call from my practice manager. And the 2-year contract that I had for the practice I was with, they were not going to renew it. And I basically was put on a 60-day severance package, a 2-year non-compete in the county. So what that means is not only did they not want me to work there, but they also didn't want me to work anywhere around the whole county. And where I live in Florida, I live in Naples, Florida. I don't know if I said that earlier, but it's one of the largest counties in all of Florida. So if you can imagine square miles wise, I was looking at where was I going to go. So I was feeling really bad for myself, and I'm the breadwinner of my family. So I also was feeling that pressure of, oh my God, what am I going to do? Right. I need to put a plan together. I knew I could find another job. It wasn't that I'd had like 8 or so jobs before. It wasn't my first go around. But I was thinking, okay, here I was 9 years in. How did this happen to me? How did they just say, we don't need you anymore? I built what I thought was going to be my future. So the bottom line was I really wasn't in control of any of it, that it was part of someone else's plan. And that's okay because technically I was an employee, right? It wasn't my business. So I thought, well, I wasn't going to do this again. I had to figure something out. And even though the opportunity that was there, I had no idea what to do with that space of, network marketing, direct sales, any of that. But I just thought, I'm sure I could try to see how it goes, figure it out, see what happens. And then that's how, Heather and I ended up meeting, I think almost maybe 6 months to a year into my business. And like I said, I was scared to death, but I am so glad I did it because cliffhanger, I was downsized again in medicine November 8th of this year. So I did go on to find another contract, which when I decided to go part-time in June, because I was able to do so because of my home business, my 2 days a week was working great for them until it wasn't. And then So it sounds like all I do is get fired, but I really am a good employee now. So yeah, that's where it is. And I can't tell you, this time was so different for me. I mean, I hope no one has to get let go twice and whatever, but for me, this time was so different. I feel like I just bounced right away because I had my business that's been running now. It'll be, it's 3.5 years, and it's been building in the background, doing it alongside my, my full-time work. And I only just went part-time in June. And that was mainly to give myself a little reprieve too, work-life balance. But now I'm feeling like maybe it was meant to be, because here I am again. And of course, don't worry, I found another work spot. We'll see how long those guys keep me. You know, you think that something is going to go one direction, it goes someplace else. And at first, like, I was devastated, but I couldn't be happier and feel better today than I'm like a different person than I was 4 years ago, for sure.
Well, and I want to dive into this with you, Jen, because, well, for a number of reasons. First of all, when you see an external change in somebody, when you see a growth, somebody lose weight, they start lighting up, like, you know that there's an internal change going on. And I have watched you physically change over the last few years, and you have done something that I really admire, simply because most people aren't willing to do it. So you are very educated, very smart, very successful in your day job. You know, you're a professional. You're at that level that most people are like, you know, go to college, get a great job, boom, there you have it, right? And yet, like, nothing is as it seems, right? Nothing is as glamorous as it actually is. And here you are in the space of, I felt like I made it. And then, like, the record scratches and the crickets go, you know, chirping, and you lose a job. And that's when you really decided to take control and do things differently. And being highly educated, being already very good at what you do, starting over, starting something new, an industry that, you know, network marketing, let's face it, doesn't have a great, what is the word I'm looking for, reputation. And here you dive into what some might call the dark side, right? To take your life back, to take control. And so walk me through that, because I know it had to be scary. I'm guessing you had a little bit of, I'm too good for this, because many smart women do. So can you dive into that?
So when I started my business, I actually didn't move the dial on it at all for, I don't even think I had my first partner for 6 months. And I don't think I even hit any kind of promotion for maybe 8 months or more. And I think what was holding me back was, I was feeling, like you said, I was definitely feeling I had an entitled mindset, because, and that is really something I had to switch, because when I was in, you know, when I'm in a medical practice, I'm going into a room and people know I'm there, and they obviously want me to be there because they want to, you know, have a result out of it. And so I wasn't used to showing up in a way that was like asking for more permission. And I think for me, network marketing has been really humbling, and it's made me look at all of the qualities that I had kind of developed. I don't think I'd always been that way. I think it kind of came along with time that weren't really, I don't think, attractive qualities about me now that I look back. And so I feel like for me personally, it sort of amplified all the things that, like, if you have a little, like, we'll just use a derm lingo of wart or mole, like, it'll amplify that, like, it really will. And you're thinking, oh gosh, I'm really not good at this part, or I'm not good at that part. And it's not easy to not be good at something because you're used to being good at something. But in a way, I think I know for sure that I practice better now with this experience going along behind me and now beside me, because I'm more aware of how I'm showing up, you know, in clinic to patients. Not that I wasn't before, but just a different degree of awareness of, you know, more like self-pride, respect of time of others. It's just definitely taught me some things that now I'm just so grateful that it has. And I was very scared to start. In fact, Heather and I connected and became friends because I had been asking probably some crazy questions on some the group page that we have for our team. And she was probably like, what is this person? Who is she? So we started doing weekly calls, and they're Monday nights at 10 p.m. my time. Now, if you can imagine, you work all day and you're super tired and you're like, ugh. But like, I wanted to do this and figure it out. So I sat on the phone with her for 15 minutes, I think for 3 or 4 months, or I don't even know how long it took. But it was basically me accepting coaching and mentorship from someone who came before me, just as if I would have a PA student come into my office, and learning a profession. And so I think once I decided to give in to trying to not be so good at this off the bat and just, almost surrendered to the process and allowed for mentoring, that's when it really changed for me. And I really began to grow my business.
Did you ever see yourself as a leader? Like, was that something you jumped into this and like, I'm going to be a leader. I'm going to, build this voice in your brand. Like, what were you thinking? And then ultimately, like, what has that done for you, that aspect, the influence in leadership?
No, that is so funny because, when I originally went off to college, because that's kind of what we were supposed to do, I wanted to be an artist. And I'm an only child. And I had a great childhood. So there's no story there, but the main thing is I was always good at entertaining myself. I like being alone. I really relish those times alone, and I just would have never. So I go into something like art, right? Because it's by yourself. You don't really need a group to do that. And then I get into medicine because I sort of catch this bug when I was doing volunteering and being there. I started as an EMT paramedic. And I really loved being there when people needed someone. So it was sort of that helping factor that got me into medicine. I was so scared to get up in front of the class and speak when I was in PA school. I hated doing, if anything had to do like a public speaking, or I would just be like, I'd try to leave the room or like hide in the back or not volunteer or, nothing, because I just I didn't like it. And, so for me, leadership did not come easy. It's sort of, I kept always thinking that every time I showed up, it wasn't about me. It was about me helping someone else see something that I had struggled with or that had helped me. And if I just put it out there and I drop it, at least it was for them. And I'm not doing it because I want to be this or that. So I sort of show up with the intent of helping someone else maybe not either take as long as I did to figure things out or to not make as many mistakes as I did. Of course, we all have to make our own mistakes, but that's what gets me to show up. And that's where I sort of feel like leadership just came that way, because I wanted to help people not do maybe the same things that I did or necessarily the way I did, and help their learning curve and businesses go better than mine.
This is so good. And I know that you have probably seen this too. And for those people watching, so often I hear especially if you are selling anything, which who's not selling something? If you're not selling a product or a service, you're selling an idea, you're selling an attitude, right? And so often I see, and especially in women, because this is what we do, right? We help people come in to a sales business, offer a product, offer an opportunity to other people. And one of the biggest hesitations and fears that I see in women is like, but I don't want to be pushy. I don't want to be aggressive. I don't want to be one of those slimy salespeople. Like, this feels all sorts of weird. And what is happening actually is you get stuck thinking about yourself. I'm worried how I'm going to look. I'm worried about what other people say about me. I'm worried about being criticized. It's like me. And people lose that truth that is when you are selling something, when you're selling a product or an opportunity, when done right, the heart is in serving somebody else and helping somebody else get what they want. They can solve a problem, make them feel better, raise their confidence, make their life easier, right? And so when people are stuck thinking, well, I just don't want to be this way, I don't want to be conceived this way, I don't want to look this way, we lose that ability to actually help other people. And that's what I'm hearing from you, which I'm not surprised, Jen, because this is what has made you so successful, not only in taking control of your life, but helping others do the same, is that instant understanding that you seem to have of, well, if I don't put myself out here and if I don't share this, then I lose the ability of helping people, which is, at the end of the day, why does anybody go into medicine? To help people.
Right.
So I love that. I love that. Let's talk about travel for a minute. Because I know
yes, I love that.
I know that you do. And this is something that has been really fun to see. I didn't grow up with like travel in my life. Money was not something we had to spend on extras. Like when we traveled, it was 26 hours straight halfway across the country to spend summers with grandma, right? So I didn't acquire this love of travel until ultimately I started a business that encouraged us to travel. But you have always had this love, and watching you as I have known you travel more into these like really exotic, cool places.
Because I now serve an elderly population and talk to a lot of older people, which I just
in
love
Naples
that. In Naples,
as a derm PA.
Yeah, and even before that, oftentimes we see older people because they tend to have a lot of the skin cancer issues, right? So all along, patients would tell me, oh, we took our trip to, I remember this one patient, he told me, oh, we took our trip to Galapagos, my wife and I. The only problem was our knees are so sore that getting on and off the boat all the time was such a big deal. And then another patient would tell me about, they went to Europe, but, with my wife's breathing problem, it's so hard for her to get all the places that we really wanted to go. So we kind of stayed at the hotel. So I would hear their stories and I got to thinking to myself, gosh, I know when we finally get the money or we've made it or we're retired and we can take the time off, that we go on these trips and places, but then our bodies are not maybe where they want to be. So I got this idea in my head and I shared it with Dennis, who's my other half, and he agreed that we should try to do an international trip once a year, no matter what the money looked like, no matter what even though it wasn't a good time, because when is it a good time, right? I mean, you have to block these things out. So we started with Ireland, which isn't like too crazy, but we didn't want to go too crazy yet. And since then we've been to Colombia, South America, Ecuador, and the Galapagos, because I took his advice on going to the Galapagos while I had good knees, right? And that was an amazing, amazing trip. We went to New Zealand and Fiji, and that was spectacular. That was a few years ago. And I went to Toronto thanks to our company trip, which is really awesome, that I earned with my team. And we hadn't been to Toronto before. That is an awesome city. I mean, maybe it's a little chilly this time of year, but we went in August and it was gorgeous. The Canadian side of Niagara Falls is just, I don't think we would have otherwise seen it had we not done that trip, because usually you would see it on maybe the US side. I've been out to see you, I think, twice in the last year in Boise. So that's not international, let's say, but I would say that I'm
town. Come on.
Yeah, it's cultural. Yeah, and I think I'm forgetting someplace, but what's on my list now is South Africa, and I really want to do a safari because I want to go before, I always think back to those patients. I feel like sometimes things speak to you in just different ways, and I take that as a way to don't wait to do things. And that's kind of how I've adopted things, even with my business too. Like, oh yeah, I could put that off, I could wait on that and do that, but just do it now, or figure out a plan. You have to be a little bit of a planner. Okay, you have to try to get it on paper 6 months in advance if you're really going to make something happen, and be able to go these places. But it has been, yes. And fortunately, the business has allowed me to not, so when I didn't work in clinic, I didn't get paid because I worked on that production type of scale. So to take time off, I'm not getting paid. So that's where this has also come for me to be such a great supplement, or even as I started in, year 2 of my business, was a supplement to, I was going to get paid when I went off on these trips. So I had to make sure there was something, that was going to come in and fill that void.
I'm going to keep that story of like, don't wait until you don't have knees to enjoy. Don't wait until, and how many stories have we heard? So my husband, I don't know if I've told you this story. My husband, Larry, bought a business, I think 3 years ago now, from a gentleman that had started it from scratch. It was a one-man show, and he was ready to retire. And so Larry purchased the business from him, and in a year and a half, he passed. Got cancer. It moved very quickly, and it was done. And those kind of things, I think, are so important, especially we're at that age, right, where we're more established. We have families. We're starting to think a little bit longer term, and to not wait. And this is travel. This is anything in life. And this is the one thing I think that I have learned from being in business, is that like there's no wrong turns in life. You make a decision, you try something because whatever, you have some weird calling saying, do this skincare thing,
right.
do this networking or marketing thing, do this, whatever. And you get in there and you go, okay, well, now what am I going to do? What am I going to do with it? What am I going to take from this? What am I going to learn from this? And then something else calls your name and you go do that. And life is meant to be lived. And that's, I think, having you in my life, that really, really sticks out for you. You are such an example of that, and like just a gracious, loving example of that. So Jen, I thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. And I wanted to say real quick before we jump off that, I turned 45 this year, because I think sometimes I want to say my age too, because starting my business at, I think 42 it was. So yeah, 42, a lot of times you think, it's too late or it's too this. And I didn't even go to PA school till I was 32, which for some people that would be considered maybe late. So I think that it's never too late, and we're never too old or too whatever to do something.
No.
So I hope by 55 that I'm just kind of doing a little video with you from who knows where, and things are even just better than today. I mean, I believe that it can be.
So we can't turn off right now because I have so much to say on this. So I recognized a couple of years ago that I have had a goal since I was really, really little. And that was to be 100 years old. Like I remember watching like Good Morning America or something, and Smucker's was always announcing the 100-year-old birthdays. And I have just always had that in my mind. And so I realized that this was like a true actual goal, and you see it in how I eat and how I treat my body and stuff. And so I turned 40 this coming year. And I'm like, if I'm going to live till I'm 100, I got 60 more years on this planet. I got a lot of time. And why not? Like, why not try? Why not start over? Why not learn a new thing? Why not, this? Because that is ultimately where I'm headed. And then also, I remember being at a conference. I went to Australia a couple of years ago and went to this big conference for women. It was incredible.
Oh, I remember seeing those pictures of you there. That was awesome. You and Jenny. Yeah. Awesome.
And what was it called? Like the Color Sisterhood or something. It was so good. And the woman who ran this, it was just this gorgeous, like wise, energetic, like inspiring woman. And she was in her 60s, and she hadn't even started this concept until she was in her 50s. And at that moment, I was like, I haven't even begun to hit my prime. And it's such a good reminder, because like I think we're at that age that back then would have been called midlife crisis. And I think it's just like, how do I want to spend my time now? What do I want to learn to do in this coming year? You know what I mean? So cool.
Yeah. And I think sometimes if someone's watching us and they're like, oh, that's great, they all seem so happy and whatever, but it wasn't something that was innate for me. Like I was definitely in that small circle. I had, before I joined my company, I was in this really tight circle of people. I wasn't open to doing new things. I was too tired to do new things. I mean, I've had to read a lot of stuff and like really just tune into like anything you were doing, Heather, really, anything you and Jenny had put out there. And Jenny's another business owner in our company, but I just started plugging in because I felt like if I surrounded myself with people that I wanted to like grab energy from, you know, and be a part of their circle of influence, like I just had to plug into that. And I just kept kind of plugging into it. So I just want to say, I know on the outside, it's like, wow, they've already all got it together. But that was only because we plugged in and tried to attach ourselves to people, right, that we could get that lift from, whether it was books or podcast or a certain coaching or this or that. You know, there's a lot of free information out there everywhere. So, you know, if you're feeling, then that's where you got to start.
Jenn, was there ever a time when you, like, do you remember a moment when you were like, I can't stay in this comfortable bubble I've built for myself. I can't stay with these limited relationships.
I can remember numerous times at work, I'd be looking at my schedule because it was usually a pretty big one. And I'd have this sinking feeling in my stomach and just like, is this it? This is it. Like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to come in here. I'm going to just do this. And you have to understand, it wasn't that I wasn't grateful for the work. It wasn't that I didn't want to serve patients. I wasn't doing enough for myself personally. I wasn't filling my cup enough so that I could really help in the way to patients that I probably should have. So I started to feel that probably almost 2 to 3 years before I even found this, you know, my business that kind of catapulted me faster into a change. But I would just sort of get this, you know, almost like an increase of cynicism, those small feelings of burnout coming up, which just come from when you begin to sort of box yourself up in an area because you don't think there's other options or you're comfortable there.
My husband used to call, I think this is probably a normal corporate term, like the golden handcuffs, right? Mm-hmm. Is that, I think that's a thing. Yeah. See, I came from teaching, like we never had, there's no golden handcuffs in teaching, you know, but I hear this a lot where it was like, and I remember my husband going through this, like not wanting to quit this job because what if this is as good as it gets?
Right.
But yet it's draining everything about who I am and draining all of my joy and all of my energy and leaving me with nothing at the end of the day. And I remember you told me one time the sheer volume of patients that you were required to see in a day.
It would be like 30 to 40, and it would end up being about 150 roughly a week out of 4 days. So, I mean, that's the name, believe it or not, it's pretty typical for dermatology, but is it correct? Is it the best way to do? I mean, you know, that's up for debate. I wouldn't want to start that necessarily, but I think that you can do a balance, mm-hmm. and I think that if we could work a little towards balance with that, and it's because we're we're a for-profit system. The more people we see, the more people that you're compensated. So there's going to be that issue, and I think it's a slippery slope.
Yeah.
And I just want to, now I do a underserved clinic 2 days a week, which I'm really excited about. And it can be sometimes busy, but there is no pressure to hit this or that. We're just taking care of people as they come. And that for me is, I don't even think I'm going to feel the kick up from that, like the release, because I'm just so used to what I've been doing, if that makes sense. So it just started for me like 3 weeks ago. I think it could probably take 6 months for me to go, oh, wow, like I'm just not this, it's just not going to be the same. Yeah.
So cool. Kudos to you, girl.
Thanks.
Congratulations on that new role and that new space and that ability to touch people and help people the way you want. Jenn, how can people find more of you if they want?
Well, I have a Facebook public page that's Jenn Rice International, and then of course I have my private page, which is great. A lot of times I do videos on there with dermatology and such, and other life life hack type of things. This my journey, so thanks.
Well, thanks for being here. Thanks for just being such a cool chick. And I know there's going to be some great takeaways. My friends, as you are watching this, I would love to hear your favorite takeaways from Jenn today. Just drop those in the comments. Feel free to tag any friends who might love this content. And if you want a replay of this or any of the content and the trainings, the hacks, the how to level up your business, how to level up your life that I give every morning of the week, just go to heatherquisel.tv and you'll never miss a juicy moment. All right, everybody, have a great day. Jenn, mwah, you're my favorite. Talk to you soon, friend.
Love you. Bye.